Welcome to Fashion Neurosis, Rachel Kushner.
Thank you, Bella.
Can you tell me what you're wearing today and why you chose these particular clothes?
Yes. Well, I happen to be wearing a shirt, a denim shirt with a tie, although I didn't knot it in a traditional way, designed by you. I just really feel like myself in this shirt. I do often wear it with jeans because the denim on denim for me is a kind of homeostasis. But it's quite hot here in London. And so I chose to go with it, these very light, thin silk pants that I recently acquired on vacation in a small village in the department Lot in France. And there was a little store in the village called L'Heure du Sud, like Southern time. And I went in and the guy had things, I think these pants are made in India, but they're very much of a style that you see French women wearing, but only when they're on vacation. Like there's a whole modality of being that is just for, L'Heure du Sud. You see these women in linen or, like these kinds of pants that are summer pants. And they're not the kind of clothes I naturally just own or would even think to acquire. But sometimes when you're on vacation and you see everybody around you dressing a certain way, it kind of seeps in. The desire, it's partly to assimilate and partly to sort of be distinct in assimilation. It's a funny contradiction. So I tried on the pants and I was talking to the guy who owns the store. I said, I think I'm going to get these pants and I can become one among les femmes de vacances. And he said something really funny back to me. And this is all happening in French, which is a challenge for me, but one that I've been trying to focus on in terms of studying and learning French the last few years. And so to have like repartee feels especially triumphant. And I said, I can finally become, one of the women of vacation. And he said, just like them, except with the classical goal of being just very marginally better than they are. Ooh. And it was so great. Yeah. And then I said something like, mais la différence est abstraite. Like it's a little abstract marginal difference. And it was just some fantasy that the shopkeeper and I were having, but it lent these pants a little bit of extra difference themselves, that they were purchased. I mean, they were like 28 euros or something, not expensive pants. But what came with them was priceless, which was this exchange about how people dress on vacation. And then I'm wearing heels made by Maison Mail. It's a shop in New York. I've actually never been there. I bought them online, but they're a kind of shoe, and I don't mean to equate them with this fabulous shirt I'm wearing, which I can say it's fabulous because it was designed by you. But the shoes for me are a similar kind of genre in that they transcend fashion for me, and are a look that I feel always remains in style, which is a kind of, with the shoe, it's different. The shirt is a little more like it has a slightly 1970s, 80s kind of vintage for me. And the shoes are more like the 70s meets the 1940s.
They are, exactly.
And they reminded me when I saw them of a kind of shoe I've always looked for, which is something I think of as being worn by the actresses in Fassbinder movies.
Oh, yeah.
And whether it's a movie that's meant to take place in the 70s or it's one of Fassbinder's kind of like wartime historical films, the women sort of dress the same. It's like, I feel like there's a secret link between the 40s and the 70s. And this is a shoe that I would put into a genre I think of as sexy secretary. Although it's not, if I were wearing them that way, it would be a skirt and a kind of cupcake blouse or something. But yeah.
When I was at school, I had this syndrome I used to call being friends with the prettiest girl in the class. And to me, you're the prettiest girl equivalent in the writing world. And there's something about you that makes people want to read your books, even though they may not even read much. And like your cleverness is going to rub off on us when we read you. And I wondered how you feel about being at the center of attention, being in the beam.
That is extremely flattering to me in a way that makes me feel strange, because like when you say that you were, how did you put it, attracted to...
friends with the prettiest girl in the class.
Yeah, and I never put myself in that position and didn't recognize any evidence that I was in that position growing up at all. And instead, like you, I was always adjacent to, and certainly friends with the prettiest girl. And I mean, I suppose if I had been given the choice to be her, I would have taken it, if life worked that way. But it doesn't. And so instead, I felt like that glow was always just sort of rubbing off on me, and that it was almost like a kind of intelligence, I thought. My friends who were beautiful had that. And I'm still friends with one of my childhood friends that we met when we were 10, and she was just the coolest, prettiest, most exciting girl. Her name is Emily Goldman, and I'm still friends with her.
Really?
And she still feels that way to me, and even has that effect on me. Like if she's wearing something, I sort of want to get the thing, and like want to be like her in a way that I just adore, because it's like somebody is close to the source.
Yeah.
And I want to drink from that source. So it's hard to answer, because I don't put myself, I don't think of myself in that kind of position. I feel like, to the second part of your question of like, to be, how does it feel to get attention? I think I'm by instinct consider attention to be something slightly unwholesome. And it's one thing to know that in theory, and it's another thing to know how to not get too distracted by it, to know how to not enjoy it too much. And if one starts to sort of live for attention and think that getting attention is being alive, my fear with that is that a person can lose the capacity, all kinds of things, but maybe most importantly, lose the capacity to listen. Because paying attention to other people and being curious about them and interested in them, and kind of being a watcher, that's the source for me to being a writer. And it's also my comfort zone. And attention can be a really useful, just in a pragmatic way, a means to an end, because if you can make a living writing fiction, that's a phenomenally special thing to do. It means that you get to go back and make more art. So the attention is a means to an end rather than an end in and of itself. But I think that it is easy to fall into kind of enjoying it.
Yeah, I have the same kind of attitude. I fear that if I enjoy attention too much, I'll forget how to pay attention, or I'll become kind of too addicted to trying to, kind of weasel out some compliment from somebody. But
so that's very similar.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's like attention itself could maybe obscure my ability to kind of remain more humbly on the margins of things, which is where I draw my real power.
Yeah.
Listening to other people.
I think that's a very good way to consider it, because it's actually wonderful to receive attention. But my previous attitude was more of a Spartan, like, just don't do that, because, like I've had some drug put in my water that I'll become obsessed with. But
so how do you avoid it when you say don't do that?
No, I don't do that now, because I feel a bit more mellow about everything in general. And but before, I was too superstitious about something going well, because I was more in the habit of being in an adversarial position. You also talked about your parents being, you said that they described hippies as being conformist. And I thought that was, I experienced growing up with hippies, and I really didn't like the sloppiness of it. And your parents sounded like they were much more organized, and you have always seemed very organized. And I wondered what your uniform was as a child.
Yeah, from the outside, I think somebody could have described my parents as hippies. My mother had very long, flaming red hair, and white skin, and she would saunter around the house nude. Oh, wow. And we had this old yellow school bus that was painted all in hippie colors, parked in our driveway in Eugene, Oregon. So they might have appeared like hippies, but I remember her saying that the whole hippie thing just seemed very conformist, because everybody's wearing the same clothes and listening to the same music, and even we're sort of believing, in the same sort of ideas about how to live. And they're a little bit older than that. They were more influenced by the beatnik generation, as she always put it. Too young to be beatniks, too old to be hippies, kind of in between, maybe slightly more influenced by the beatniks. But in terms of clothes, it's like a funny thing talking about the privations of childhood, because my parents are educated people. On my mother's side, even my great-grandmother went to college.
Wow.
So, like, in terms of class, I feel like I'm firmly from the middle class, especially on my mother's side. But my parents were graduate students when I was a kid. So they were living on such a shoestring budget. And, we had like government assistance, like food stamps and government cheese, and everything was just, there was not money for clothes. My mother sewed us some clothes. So I had these little dresses when I was a toddler that she sewed, and I still remember the fabric. And
really,
she would get free fabric from my grandfather, who worked in the textile industry on the East Coast. So he would send these boxes of fabric, and she would make shirts for my brother and dresses for me. And then later, my brother and I sewed some of our own clothes. I remember I had pajamas that I sewed myself, and one leg was like kind of narrow and fitted the way these pants are, and then the other was quite wide. I don't know how I ended up with that. But, it's like, and then what did I wear to school? I mean, I had this T-shirt that I got at the county fair. This is in Eugene, Oregon. And every summer, the Lane County Fair took place. And it was just the most exciting thing. partly because of clothes, because I could see teenagers there. And like boys and girls with their sort of arms draped over each other. And the girls are wearing these like really tight denim bell bottoms with tube tops. And people are tan in a way I've never been able to get a tan. And that seemed like just this fabulous accessory. And there was a place where you could get a T-shirt with an iron-on design on it. And I got one at the fair one summer, which was a picture of Farrah Fawcett in, I don't know if you would remember this image, wearing a red bathing suit.
Oh, yeah.
And
Totally.
I picked this little yellow T-shirt and I got that ironed onto it. And I think I sort of thought it was aspirational to wear that shirt. And Farrah's so tan and she has this fabulously feathered hair. You know, she's like some kind of like purebred stallion or something. She just looks amazing.
And does she have the nipples in that?
The nipple is visible, but I guess I didn't really notice that until I'd been wearing that shirt to school every day. And an adult at some point said to me, you know, that shirt's not really appropriate for a child.
Oh, God.
And I sort of thought, what? I just didn't know. But so I wore that, and then I wore some bell bottoms. And I remember that I bought these pants myself. I had a paper route one summer, and so I made money, and I went to the department store downtown, and they were like $4. These white pants, and I almost never washed them, so they were filthy. And that was how I dressed. And my brother and I each got like one new pair of tennis shoes a year from Tom McCann. So I wore Tom McCann shoes. I remember my mother wanted me to wear saddle shoes. I have no idea why, but I hated them so much.
What are they?
They're, if I understand this right, it's like a leather lace-up shoe with a rubber sole, like that people would have worn with a uniform in the 1950s. And I think she got me a pair at Goodwill or something. And I thought, what are these? I mean, now I probably would think they were cool. But, you know, as a kid, you just want to assimilate. You just want to wear what the other kids are wearing. I wanted clogs when I was a child so badly. And my mother got me clogs at Salvation Army or Goodwill, and they were fluorescent green. And at the time, it was the 1970s, and you had to have earth-toned clogs.
Yes, I had earth-toned.
Oh, I wanted them so badly. But
oh, God.
It's okay.
I came to your work. I was sitting next to someone at lunch, and they told me about your book of essays, The Hard Crowd, and that one of them was about you visiting the West Bank, and I also visited the West Bank many times. And then she sent me the book, and I saw your picture on the cover and thought, oh, wow, you know. And then I contacted my PR. I had a PR in LA and said, ask her if she wants to ever borrow any of my clothes. And then when he replied, he had sent me your email that you had allowed him to pass on. And then we started writing to each other and until we finally met. And I wondered how you knew I'd be an okay friend.
Yeah, that was just the luckiest thing. I remember that you reached out and it got forwarded to me by my publicist. I mean, to have the connection of a mutual interest in the rights of the Palestinian people is no small commonality. Mm-hmm. But it was the way that you wrote also. I mean, it's quite flattering to have somebody who's read my work and interested in me because of it. But I think I'm often thinking more along the lines of, oh, this person is really reading and reaching out to people, like using the good luck of their position to make contact with people who are writing because they're reading those people's work. And I want to be like that too, honestly. I want to be ever curious and reading and seeing who is generating ideas that I can learn from and be in correspondence with. And so there was something about the way you wrote that was exciting to me. Like, I want to be like Bella. And and then at getting to know you, I feel like you are always reading and thinking about who out there is making interesting work. And there's just something very like open and affirming and positive about it. And you have a very soft way of communicating. I mean, do you feel this way sometimes with email? Even if part of it is a projection, the projection is part of who the other person is for you.
Yeah.
It's how you think, how you imagine, fantasize, dream that they're going to receive your words. And so it can shape and inform how I speak and how I experience myself to another.
Yeah.
Like, I just had this sense that if I said something to you through email, the ball would be passed back in this really inspiring way.
I remember being quite self-conscious about what words I'd choose to write to you, how I'd write to you, and worried that I'd be over-stylized by mistake, and then just sort of getting the pen out. I mean, obviously not the pen, but just thinking. And then what was really lovely was that you sent me a picture of your son. And then
I don't remember that. I did.
And then we both each have one child, a son. And then the picture was so endearing because it was, I find like with me and my son, it was all about him. And this photo was all about him with you kind of adoringly looking at him. And that kind of was like the measure. And then we started writing very slowly, and it was just so enjoyable to find out, like a 19th century type of correspondence, what's going on in your life in this slow way. I thought it was really cool that you had a picture of yourself on the cover of that, especially these sort of particularly academic essays. So they're just, I only use that word because they're just so filled with intelligence. And I found out all sorts of things, like about that writer, Dennis Johnson, who I'd never heard of. And I felt like, how did I miss this person? But then I wondered if you ever find your intelligence can get in the way of a good outfit. Like, people expect only your intelligence and not your beauty.
Well, it's funny the way you put that. Can intelligence get in the way of a good outfit, rather than can a good outfit get in the way of intelligence, in the sense of, does it seem less serious to make a concerted effort when it comes to your look?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because you can think, well, I'm just going to be sitting in this chair, so I should wear something practical and nondescript. And then in theory, that's intelligent, but it's actually utterly dreary. And so you have to flip it somehow, and there's a sort of war that goes on occasionally, which I'm giving up this idea that less is more, that actually more is more.
In terms of that book and putting myself on the cover, it was my editor's idea to do that. It's something that maybe a writer in the 1970s would have allowed, just a picture of yourself. And since it's nonfiction and it has some more personal work in it, I kind of thought, why not? Why not? I mean, now I feel a little more shy about it when I look at that book. Like, it's pretty bold to put yourself on the cover of your own book.
It's good bold, though. It's exactly right. I think it's fantastic. Anyway, it spoke to me.
But, Dennis Johnson, Jimmy loves Dennis Johnson also. Something, now that have gotten the I've experienced the wonderful good luck of getting to know your son, Jimmy.
Yeah, it's so
I
nice.
feel like we share taste in literature, he and I, and it's really fun to kind of marvel over sentences and passages and pieces of writing, short stories by people we both really love, among them Dennis Johnson.
Because you're close with the writer Don DeLillo, and you described him as your mentor, and he's known to be quite inscrutable, and I wondered why you thought you get on so well.
DeLillo, for me, it's funny because he's Don now to me, but that just sounds so, it's like when people shorten a name and you only think of that person from a great distance, it seems a little pretentious or something. But that's odd for me now to call him DeLillo because at first he's just a writer that meant so much to me when I was younger. Still means a lot to me now. But when you get to know a person, some of that distance has to collapse because it's a real person. It's a man. It's not just this sort of giant of American literature and humor and style and originality that you think of from a distance, because that would be creepy to treat that person continually and obsessively like that, once you get to know them. But I don't know. We have the same editor at Scribner, Nan Graham, and she sent him my first novel, Telex from Cuba, way back when, before it came out in 2007. And he wrote me a really nice letter.
Wow.
And I'm certainly not the only person who's gotten a nice letter from Don. He's actually quite generous with other writers, especially with younger writers. And he takes his correspondence so seriously. He writes people back.
That's incredible.
It is incredible. And I actually feel like the further you are from your own greatness, the easier it is to be a kind of slob about that sort of thing, and to not remember to attend to other people. I remember him saying to me once that he's always on time. He's always 5 minutes early. I said, "You're always on time." And he said, "I can't imagine the confidence that would be required to be late."
God.
I know. But so he'd written me back, and then we became friends through Nan, and started spending time together.
Wow.
And now I feel quite close to him and his wife also, Barbara. They're wonderful people. I feel like my role in Don's life is to make him laugh. And he makes me laugh. And for a long time, it was going to the movies together. And he doesn't go to the movies that much anymore. He's a little more watches movies, stays home. He will go to a restaurant. And I think it's just, I don't know.
It's funny that you said he makes you laugh, because I went to a reading he did at the Shakespeare Bookshop in Paris about 10 years ago or something. And his face was, he didn't move a muscle. He didn't smile or laugh. And then his wife was so wreathed in smiles and just was so kind of beaming. And I love the idea that the special relationship is about smiling, that you have a way in, because he was so fascinating and intriguing. And then I knew Jimmy loved his books as well, and I managed to get a signed book. And it seems very nice that you have this thing.
I love to be around him. I also feel like he's a unique combination of extremely serious about art and making art, and extremely humble. And it's a rare combination, like a fusing of those two things. Because to make art, you really have to think, you have to know you have something.
Yeah, it's true.
And at the same time, he doesn't put himself above other people. And he's very self-minimizing.
Wow.
So I'm attracted to that combination. I think there is something for me that is a bit like there's a sort of father figure component to what he is to me. And that was not the case when I was merely his reader. But getting to know him, it's become much more the case. And it's because he's the same generation as my father. And Don is from the Bronx. My father is from Brooklyn. They both have basically the same sideburns. They both were really shaped by their interest in jazz. And there's just some cultural, even though Don is Italian, my father is Jewish, but there's this like immigrant sensibility there a little bit. And they met each other in San Francisco, and they were facing each other. And so I was looking at the two of them, like these two profile faces, and they were each smiling at the other with the sideburns. And it was almost like a Rorschach, like two people in mirror image. And they liked each other a lot. And it kind of was like very powerfully confirming for me of this myth that I've unconsciously confected into place, which is that Don is a kind of father, and obviously my father is my father.
God, incredible.
I really wanted them to have a conversation with each other about jazz, because they were both at these tiny clubs, seeing Coltrane, seeing Monk, etc. And they both still talk about it. And my dad said, but you can't listen in, because you'll just take all the good stuff and try to write about it.
Well, you have this talent and this incredible ability to tell stories about people that aren't you. And in the Mars Room, about a girl in a women's prison, it's so real. And when I read it, I just thought, well, you must have experienced this. It was so, I believed in it, and and it's so real. And in your book, Creation Lake, the character Sadie Smith, she has this amazing boob job, and you describe how she doesn't wear a bra, and her modest is based on her way of being, which is not your way. You're much more kind of inscrutable and discreet. And I wondered how you, when you're making this, like when you're describing her and making this character, how do you feel when you're creating it? And do you suddenly own those breasts for a moment?
Yeah, well,
I know everyone noted the breasts because they were so good.
Some people were sort of upset about that. I mean, I think there's only like 3 mentions of it in the book, but maybe just that kind of using your body as a tool. I mean, that character, is a disgraced former FBI agent who has this arsenal. Like, she travels with weaponry and infrared goggles. I mean, I was sort of having a little bit of fun in a way that was quite new for me in terms of like dabbling in the crime genre. Obviously, the novel's it's not a noir, it's not a crime novel, but the main character seems to believe that she's in a crime novel. And so I was giving her this equipment, and then I just thought that, her rack is like just another arsenal in her toolbox. Yeah. And I think that I was thinking of women I knew in the 90s in San Francisco who were making their living working at strip clubs. Like the Mitchell Brothers was sort of like a famous place in San Francisco. And like the girls, there was a girl who worked at Mitchell Brothers who came into the bar that I worked in, and she said, I just got a boob job, and she was lifting up her blouse to show everyone her breast augmentation. And I think what I took away from it was that that once she'd had that done, her breasts were more like a public service. They weren't hers anymore. And she'd gone from being naked to being nude. Like she could just be for show and anyone could look at the breasts and people were touching them.
Wow.
And so I sort of thought Sadie could be like that. It was sort of like hearkening back to this memory I had of a woman who doesn't feel like her body is just something private and rather something that she's instrumentalizing.
Yeah, it does a job.
It does a job. Yeah. And Sadie's using it when she's describing it. When she's that point in the book when she says her breasts don't need a bra, she's manipulating this young man into a relationship with her so that she can make contact with his friend who's the de facto leader of this group of militants in a rural part of France. And it's all part of her mission. But in terms of imagining myself into that position, yeah, it's more like, I mean, fiction, it's really hard, but it's so fun when it works. And I think that the first person is, for me, it's the hardest. The third person is easier because some of the trappings of like all the literature I've read in third person are there for me. And you can see the character from a little bit outside of the character. And when you speak in the I, but as a fictional I, you really have to feel who that person is so that you can remember that they are not you. Like you can't just say, well, they're not me, because you're speaking in the first person. And so you have to have a very worked out idea of who that I is and why they're speaking in the first person, and also like how they're being insistent. I mean, she's very overconfident and telling the reader that, for instance, she's a better driver while drunk.
Yeah.
And so that all requires me to kind of like get deeply into the role and never ever to mistake that person for me, because I'm not really interested in using myself in my fiction. I'm much more interested in other people and what it feels like to be them. I was just going to ask you, do you think that that it's dangerous to be really good looking?
God, I mean, I think it brings a whole load of problems with it, because whenever I've hung out with very beautiful friends, and one of my good friends, Susie Cave, is just, I remember walking down the street with her and the creepiest guys came up to her, and then I'd get very defensive and like a bodyguard.
Well, I love the episode that you did with Susie. And she seems very unusual.
Yeah,
as somebody who's uncommonly and ethereally beautiful. I don't know her, but the way she speaks, she sounds sort of like she didn't identify as beautiful when she was young.
Yeah, I think very beautiful girls have lots of this insecurity. So everyone else projects that they must be having an amazing time, and they have all these extra insecurities about this incredible beauty that they're burdened with. So in that way, it must be quite a full-time job. And how do you feel about competitiveness? Because when I was having a crisis of inadequacy with my shrink told me to treat competitiveness as a game and enjoy playing it. And I found that really helpful, especially about people who I knew and they were suddenly doing much better with me. And I felt like, oh God, I don't know how to cope. And then he said, you could enjoy it. And that was like recasting a whole way of thinking about myself.
That was effective advice for you.
Really good.
I've never thought of that, and I'm going to. I think that, yeah, and I can see why he says that too, because our instinct is that it's unwholesome to feel competition with other people because you want to just be happy for them. And also, well, at least for me, competition feels unwholesome because it suggests that I've decided that I'm equally deserving, if not more so, than other people for the same, whatever it is, if it's a prize or a certain kind of attention. And I don't want to think of myself as being someone who thinks they're more deserved than other people. And I also am pretty unsure if I am. Because, how you make a novel is never about how other people make novels or how novels are generally made. It's a pretty solipsistic enterprise in the sense that I'm really following some very deep instinct, like I'm digging until I hit water. And when I do, it's only water that I would recognize,
God, that's so beautifully explained. That's like a pure philosophy. I like that a lot.
You make a thing that speaks to you and is like a true engagement with your own unconscious, and like the book seems to be smarter than the writer is. And whether other people gravitate toward it or not is sort of impossible to predict and dangerous to try to anticipate. Like, I don't try to please other people because I think it's it isn't how my art would be made, but I also think it's like a recipe for failure because it's like pandering to people rather than trying to conjure the thing that I would dream of seeing, But so because making it is a little solipsistic, I can't say that the dream that other people conjure to please themselves is objectively inferior to what I make. So I just try to remember that. And there's been situations, like in England with the Booker Prize, I've gone through that kind of set of rituals with two different novels, and just with the most recent one, in the fall. And actually, you came with me, as my date, which was so wonderful because I find you to just be the most soothing, reassuring person. And they try to make it into this like kind of Hunger Games environment.
It was quite shocking, really, to have literature dragged in, but then, why not? And also poets are famously the most competitive people in the world, which I found like goes against the notion. But that night it was so intense.
I think maybe, to their credit, it's sort of sweet because they want to dress up literature as something worth fighting over, something worth fighting for. But I think it's uncomfortable for the writers who don't want to be like that. And I just want to leave every situation like that, frankly, feeling like a winner rather than as a loser. And so I have a very deep instinct to expect nothing because I never want to be disappointed. I just feel like it's undignified for me as a feeling. And so I have like very deep sort of prophylactic instincts against it. And I've been like that, I would say always. Like when I met my husband, I told myself, he just wants to be friends. It's just going to be a friendship. Because I didn't want to get my hopes up, know? And so with the Booker Prize, I thought, well, I'm not going to win. And I told Samantha Harvey, I think you're going to win. And then she won, and I gave her this huge hug, and I felt like I got to have the very tiny victory of having told her she would win and having been correct.
That's really good.
Because, it feels better in that situation to give the winner a hug and feel happy for them and good about things than to feel bad. And I think I'm experienced at some of this because I mostly don't win. But I also don't know. I mean, it is fun to win. That's the problem, is I have won one prize in France, and I thought, oh, damn, it actually is more fun to win. I remember I met, I think it was Wolfgang Tillmans who told me this. I was at his opening, and he said something like, oh, congratulations. It was with the Mars Room. Like, I see you are on the short list. And I said, oh, I can't remember, something like, I don't expect to win. And he goes, but the thing is, it is better to win. And it was so funny to me at the time. And then the one time I did win, I thought of that, and in a German accent, oh, it is better to win. But the main thing is just not to feel bad, and not to be ungenerous toward the person who wins.
And that can all go well with "it is better to win." It's kind of in harmony. That's so good. I'm definitely going to remember that. And if you fancy someone and don't like what they're wearing, does it kill your attraction to them?
I can see times where I'm quickly trying to readjust what sexiness is if somebody is interrupting a kind of effective projection that I've made onto them, Like if they were to show up in cargo shorts and Birkenstocks or something, I'm already doing a sort of work to try to hold on to the earlier fantasy.
Yeah.
So I guess that's like a way of saying yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does interrupt. I remember being young. I always think of this when I hear you ask this question of other guests. I remember when I was younger, I was on a ski team. And when you're on the hill with a bunch of ski racers, everybody is just in their ski clothing. And there's a sort of like cool hierarchy of like the best racers and the most good looking guys. And also the ski patrollers. Like there would be like cool patrollers on the hill who helped run our races, and we're working with them, and they're wearing a uniform from the ski area. And I remember the end of the day, like people showing up to our parties that we'd met on the hill, like a patroller. And then suddenly he's wearing, a Hawaiian shirt and some weird jeans. And you think this is just some country guy. And he's suddenly less attractive because in place of the uniform is something that doesn't quite fit with how I was projecting onto that person on the hill.
I know, because especially skiers, there's an edit, there's a kind of also a proportion with this long leg and this agility, and that is so captivating. And then for that uniform to come off and there's, shape and some flowery shirt is...
You have to feel the real person suddenly, which when you're young, I think for me, partly crushes, they weren't really about these people. It's so much of it is a fantasy and a projection.
And in Creation Lake, you say the title of the book was inspired by a French novel that featured a map in which all the sites are emotional states rather than physical places. And I wondered where you live on the emotional map.
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, there's this this ancient French map that has like, the lake of forgetting and the glade of deception. I can't see it in front of me right now in order to choose, so I'll just have to invent. Well, it's some kind of meadow. Emotionally, it's really hard to say. That's a tough question for me to answer. I mean, I'm interested in tenderness.
That's
for
nice.
sure. In the sense that I want to really experience feelings and other people's feelings. What about you?
When I found that question for you, I was really excited about asking you because it's not immediately obvious because you're so composed and you also give a lot to other people. So on the emotional map, what's coming into my thoughts is like ferocity. But it's also...
Ferocity.
Yeah. I suppose it's also connected to love, that love is a fierce thing. So on the borders of love and ferocity, maybe that's where my little heart would be.
What kind of love?
I suppose the courage to have love without certain conditions that really are imposed by me, or love without a distance regulator. And that's what I'm exploring at the moment, how to stop putting things in the way. I mean, I'm definitely improving, but...
Is this romantic love that you
I think
speak
it's
of, or more
romantic
something more
love.
general?
Because with my son and my friendships, I feel like I'm way ahead of romantic love, which is still like a kind of an assault course that I'm always having to climb up millions of bars or go into tunnels.
It's a more complicated kind of love, to be sure.
Yeah.
But you know, you seem like somebody who is really good at friendship.
Yeah, I love friendship.
I feel the same way. So maybe, which I don't want to, bask in our incredible qualities, but I feel like I've been incredibly lucky in my life when it comes to friendships, and maybe it is something that I might have a talent for, and maybe you're like that too.
Yeah, maybe.
Like I don't spend any of my time ever feeling upset at friends. I'm really good at taking what other people offer and not expecting more or wanting more. Like each friend, they just give what they can, they give what they give. And I love the way that all of friendships and other people really do form a kind of symphony for me, where like I can go to different friends for different forms of inspiration and also different modalities of self. Like different people kind of bring out different aspects of myself.
Yeah, totally. Yes.
And I just love that. And I'm so excited about all my friends. I really feel like other people are like, they have a sort of star quality. And yeah, loving other people is becoming more and more clear to me, even as sort of sentimental or basic as that sounds. Just wanting to be present for them so that I don't miss what's amazing about people.
Yeah. And you cite Dolly Parton as a person whose values you respect, and I do too. She's not in the revenge business, which seems to be all the rage at the moment. And did you listen to that podcast, Dolly Parton's America?
I actually haven't listened to that podcast, but I know about it. Should I?
Totally. It's one of the most amazing things it's like where you learn about kind of accepting people, and also to be ambitious and to survive in a kind of competitive world. But where did you find her to choose her as the one?
Well, I've long been interested in country music, and maybe part of it is because my mother spent part of her childhood in Eastern Tennessee, and they would go to the Grand Ole Opry, and then I guess it's like the style and the look of the people who performed at the Grand Ole Opry in the 70s was always of interest to me. And I have this huge book. I mean, it's just enormous, which is all photographs from the Grand Ole Opry in the 60s and the 70s. And there are pictures in there of Dolly Parton. And I love Down from Dover, which is basically maybe the saddest song that's ever been sung. And she just always, I mean, even before she sort of became like newly famous as somebody who can embody something American that's not divisive, you know? Even before all of that, she always seemed like a woman who used her looks and her sort of costume in this very self-knowing, like camp manner. And I just always thought that was really fantastic. And she's never saccharine or fake.
Never.
She's just absolutely a real person who's also a performer. Like there's these kind of, you know, there's these layers there. And yet she's also quite frank. I love the contradiction of it.
Yeah. Because when you listen to Dolly Parton's America, it's almost like Candide, but the opposite, where she gets everything right. She goes through all these experiences, but she's this knowledge that she sort of shares, you know, her way of conducting herself in life is just extraordinarily, it's like a lesson from the Bible and every good philosophy that was ever invented. And I thought it was great that you chose her, because it sort of conjures up everything: beauty, intelligence, good instinct, creative brilliance, and kind of acceptance as well.
I mean, people like that who kind of have a light that they know how to shine, they make everybody else seem to glow also.
Yeah.
Like they can inspire
so
other people to be better people.
Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for being on Fashion Neurosis.
Oh, thank you so much, Bella. It's really nice lying on your couch.